Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhodes on the Buy Here Pay Here morning show. Take it away, you two.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, Michelle.
How are you?
You know, I'm pretty good so far today. You?
Good. I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Why are we so dang formal?
I forgot the show was starting, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, welcome, folks. Happy Friday. Happy to be back here
Yeah.
with you on the Buy Here Pay
Yeah.
morning show.
Just
There's been
getting back from
some travels.
some travels.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
invited to come and speak at the Houston IADA. My first
Mhm.
time in Houston, aside from just passing through the airport, and in a while. I was glad to be there.
Yeah.
Got to see Crystal and Luis Aguayo from ScopeX Pros. You know, somebody we've
Yeah.
worked with over the years, and
They're friends, and we've worked with them.
yeah, colleagues, and just consummate professionals. And they came over to the event, but they were kind enough to pick me up at the airport. Came over to the event, and
Yeah.
had a ticket for the thing. Wonderful event. Those guys do a really great job. You know, you see it on social media when they do their stuff. We're on their email list, and they kind of rotate speakers in there once a month. And I was pleased to be invited and really enjoyed my time. It's always fun to see people in the crowd that I've known for some time. We see these folks
And new
at
faces
conference, and
too.
new faces, and people that meet at social media. So it was a really great time. Spoke about the subject of AI, but in particular, I was supposed to record it, and I forgot. Just in the haste of all the stuff.
He was like, I was going to have it all set up, and then I got there, and people wanted to talk, and then it was just like I was introduced, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing this.
Yeah, I just got wrapped up in chatting with everybody, and
which is not a bad thing.
No, for sure, it's not. I just had meant to capture it because it was an important conversation. I chose. And I told the audience, I said, this is one of three ways I could have gone with this topic. And I chose the one that I think is most personal and intimate, right? So that we could talk about it in the room, which we did. The feedback was excellent. The reaction in the room was excellent. Glad to have a chance to have that conversation.
Yeah.
We'll find ways to bring that back here.
Well, and we are anticipating doing a series of 3 segments that we will release.
Sure.
Likely on Tech Watch,
right.
Which is a podcast that we have developed, and we haven't had its grand opening yet, but it will be happening very, very soon.
Right.
So,
yeah. So again, thanks to Chris Donnelly and April Hansen for the invitation. Was glad to be down there with y'all, and was a quick turnaround trip, and now back in Oklahoma doing our thing. So we got a big subject for today, Michelle. This is a subject that has bounced around. It keeps coming up in our V8 meetings, and you see it on social media. And I think today I want to hit it right between the eyes. So we just jump in there and just get it.
And just so you all know, I mean, I'll get to what that as we get talking about this subject. It's not about this or that. It's this and that.
Yeah, it's both. You're right. Yeah, it's a good way to bring that up. I think so today we're talking about Recon, and in particular Recon Bottleneck. And most of what we're going to talk about here would apply for a retail business. It would apply for certainly our Buy Here, Pay Here, and Lease Here, Pay Here people, which is where we hear it. That, you consistently hear dealers say, Recon is my bottleneck. They'll kind of be apologizing in a meeting. My sales are slow, but my Recon's a problem, and so that's the thing we've been hearing. That's not a new thing. And it just happens that I come from a background where among the things I did in my time in ownership and management was to address some of this. And so for today, I brought some math to kind of illustrate for our viewers kind of what to really think about. And so in my description of the broadcast, I just said, look, it's kind of like when there's a dam in the river. We just got to go in there with some dynamite and blow it up. We got to clear the bottleneck.
And that is, how many times we've had conversations about those things that I've heard myself, as it's like, if I could just get 2 more, 5 more,
Mhm.
10 more. I mean, it's like it would change everything, but it's like it's taking too long
Right.
to get it. It's like, you look at we've been to dealers where it's like you look at their lot of cars that are waiting for Recon, and there's a lot of them sitting there. And,
Yeah. And I think
and
before we dive too deep into this, I'd like to back up even talk about my experience in 20 groups and in my experience. Keep in mind, when I first got in the car business in 95 as a salesperson, I was in the franchise world. So in franchise world, you have a service department, sales department, all this stuff. And I moved into sales management. So there was direct interaction with the service department, and then being involved in 20 groups, which included some franchise dealers. It's really common. So let me just kind of paint this as a backdrop for our conversation today, because I think what happens is in the franchise world, it's common for, and especially let's break it down even further. If you're a franchise dealer who also has a buy here, pay here division, maybe it's a separate building, but it's a buy here, pay here satellite off of the franchise world. Well, it's common for franchise people to want or even demand that all of the Recon goes through their shop. Okay, so if I'm a franchise dealer and I'm only selling X number of cars, and I'm having trouble getting amount of gross on the new car side, which we know happens, then I count on the revenue in my service department. Right. So I want that service there. And maybe I give the buy here, pay here a special rate. Maybe I don't. We've seen it. We've seen the gamut on that. But the main premise is that franchise dealers want that car to go through their shop. It's understandable, right? They would want to keep that internally. And even if they pay themselves a high rate, they'd rather pay themselves than somebody else. Understood.
Okay.
Where it becomes a problem is when that policy starts to stunt our growth, our sales, our ability to sell. It's if in the same breath, we're saying, well, we lost a tech, and so we have a problem with some of our lifts, and so we're stacked up and we're running behind, and so our sales are slow. Well, that's just something that if you said it 1 month, I'd understand if it was a temporary thing. But if you find yourself saying it month after month after month, then it's time to relook at the whole process. And I think part of the breakdown here is it's a mindset. It's like a trap that we get in our mind that says, we need to recondition our own cars because 1, we want some control. 2, we know we're going to pay less in our own shop than we're going to pay externally. True. There's truth to that. Let me tell you what's also true. Missing sales cost you in a big way.
Yeah. And I get most dealers that we've talked to, it's like that they're watching where pennies are going. I mean, they're watching those things. And so it's like, well, we should be able to do this and be able to keep our costs to this. And it's just like, do we need to add another bay? Do we need to be able to accommodate it? What I know we've put multiple dealers, we've helped multiple dealers start up their business, and not all of them have a Recon. And so this is kind of a hybrid of what it is that you did when you were a dealer, and dealers that have a bay that have people there to work on their on getting things ready for the front line. And I think there's a couple of elements in here too. That I hope that we get weaved into it is, if you're gonna do your own Recon, are you also doing customer repairs?
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I thought about that earlier.
Yeah, because that will be one of the quickest ways to slow down what's coming out of Recon.
Yeah.
It just will.
I'm glad you brought that up. Let's talk about that on the front. I've got numbers to share, and I would encourage people to hang in here, because the numbers that we're going to talk about today are going to be extremely relevant. They're tied back to our V8 dealer groups. I've actually got data through April. We're recording this in mid May. So we're actually working off very fresh 6-month averages. We got real numbers on selling prices and gross and cost of car and all that stuff. So we're going to get to some real numbers, but I think the relevant parts, and I'm glad you touched on that part, custom repairs. We meet dealers and they may have, I'll give you a quick example. They have a service department with 6 lifts,
Mm-hmm.
and they dedicate 2 of those to customer repair, which is fine. That's better than what some might do.
Yes. Right? In theory,
right?
That's what they have. But if they've got 2 cars up on lifts waiting for a part and someone's got an emergency, now it's spilling into where it does. And now, so it requires a pretty high level of consistency and knowing that it's a commitment to that policy.
Yeah, let's take the slow approach to this thing, because I think there's a couple of things that I don't recall that you and I have really broken these down in any kind of specificity in the podcast in the past. So let's get this stuff on record. Like my own experience, I was a dealer myself for about 7 years, but outside of that, I also managed some operations, and some were doing I've had dealerships where I did a complete overhaul of a dealership that went from selling junk cars to selling quality cars and pretty good volume, and had a great customer service process and good collections. I mean, there's a story there, and there's a recon element to that. There's a dealership that I managed that had a franchise store at the center of it, and had 4 buy here, pay here stores, all within about a 20-minute radius of the franchise store. Okay, so there was that experience. And that one, let's talk about for a minute, because when I arrived on the scene as a newly, hired general manager, they didn't expect me there. And you had 4 stores, and they all had their own little processes, right, for how they did things. And that dealer did not mandate, it didn't require that the stuff came through the franchise service department. Okay. So they had a little bit of flexibility. But there was a scenario where when I showed up, there was one shop. And keep in mind, all 4 of these lots are really underperforming in terms of volume. They're doing, they're selling 6 to 8 cars a month or whatever, and they're in good markets. They should be selling much more. And one of the things I identified was the Recon bottleneck was that, we had one shop, for example, or one location where the dealer themselves insisted that all the stuff go to this one mechanic because he trusted this one mechanic. You're grinning because you know the story.
I know the story, but I also know the layers too. Yeah. I mean, that's like a whole nother trap,
isn't it?
It's a whole nother trap.
That's a good point. Yeah, we can break that whole thing down. But I think the relevant part of this one is that manager who that manager was insisting that all of the Recon go to that one building.
This is a different layer. I'm remembering the story now.
Yeah, let's don't even say where it was. There's stories, there's angles here that are, and it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But the Recon part of this is I go to that building because one of my jobs is go in there, and first thing I want to do is go in and figure out where all the assets are. Where are the cars? Where are the stuff?
Well, because that was what your job was, is to go through and make sure.
So early on was my job was to kind of, let's figure out where all the stuff is, assets and whatever, bank accounts and all the stuff. And in going through inventory lists and finding out that we have 20 cars in Recon as an example, and 14 of them are sitting at this one shop. And I go over there.
Sitting.
They're just sitting. So I go over there to this one shop, and there are cars that it's clearly been sitting there for weeks. Right?
Yeah. There's easy ways, and you all know it's like if there's a lot of dust or there's a lot, they're just it
was clear that
they've been there for a while.
Planted, like the tires have rot, they have dry rot, where they're sitting, whatever. It's like you could just tell these cars have been sitting. And the car, and then in the dealership, by the way, is underselling, right? They're definitely not selling much, and they're waiting on cars and this and that. Well, here's what can happen. So this is why I think it's important for us to tell the expanded version, because dealers have been there and they're going to hear this. When I say the things, like mechanics are going to come to them and say, an external mechanic, hey, I'd love to have your work. If I do you a special rate on labor, if I could get all your work. And dealers can fall into that trap.
Hustle. Yeah.
Well, dealers can fall into that. It's just that what you find is you can end up just like what this was, because that was the scenario here. This guy's got all these cars stacked up, and we're at their mercy. And what incentives do they have to turn our cars out any faster than all the other cars that are coming in? Unless we're just standing on top of them, breathing down their neck every day for cars, get me cars, and they're an independent shop, like so we have to have some incentive in that, right? To be able to, we have to have them, the shop, have some incentive. So I'm going to offer today some very specific ways to address that. But I think the main thing we're here to talk about today is the difference of internal versus external. Okay.
Yes.
So,
and it has, I mean, it can work this and that. It can work this or that.
Right.
I mean, that they can work as long as you have policies that are keeping inventory flowing.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about exactly how we solved that thing. And not everybody was happy, by the way, in the deal, except the dealer principal who owned all 4 locations, because suddenly sales volume went up, right? And business started happening. And so we did solve that problem. And so I think it's important for people to tune in and stay with us, because I'm going to share with you exactly how we solved that. And I think this applies. It doesn't matter if you're a store selling 100 a month or selling 10 a month. The premise is the same. And so I think it can work for most anybody, buy here, pay here, or retail. Okay, so we'll come back to that. Another one that I worked with a dealer who was struggling with, they had a small shop, didn't have a lot of lifts, didn't have a lot of techs, and they were dealing with customer repairs, right? They're dealing with higher mile cars. And so suddenly what can happen is, I'll just exaggerate it here, is suddenly you can find that you had a good month last month. You sold 35 cars and they're high mile cars. And now suddenly a lot of those customers are back in the shop needing help with this or that. And so suddenly you look up and your techs are busy handling customer stuff, which can be a limitation on sales, because suddenly we're not reconditioning our own inventory because we're wrapped up in customer repairs. Not a new problem, but it's like we have to have solutions, because if we can't afford to service the customers that we have and still sell cars, then that's obviously a problem we need to solve, right? And so this is what we're going to talk about today, also solve some of that. But I remember working with that particular dealer down south, and I said, if you were to just today make a policy that says customer repairs can go to an outside shop, it can be the choosing of the customer, to the choice of the customer, wherever it's convenient for them, somebody they know and trust. It can be a friend or family member, as long as they trust them. And now the dealer, I asked him to think about that customer repair. It's just a financial matter. It's an account matter. I'm going to support that customer after delivery, and I'm going to support them financially. Now, this will be true whether I'm doing side notes, whether I'm doing it as a goodwill repair, whether I'm doing it through a service contract or a warranty. It's all the same. It's like, it's a financial matter. I'm still supporting the customer, and I'm just getting out my paycheck and writing my checkbook and writing a check to be able to keep that customer happy, get their problem solved, and get them back on the road. So that's an uncomfortable thing for a lot of dealers to think about, because one, I'm going to go out and pay somebody else to do a water pump at $125 an hour, where I could do it myself. So this is the thing. Go ahead.
I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Please.
Okay. Cause so if you had to choose between Recon and customer repairs with relationship in mind, which would you put where if you had 3 bays?
I had 3 bays? Yeah. With customer repairs, I would just have an advocate, as you and I have talked about. The repairs would all be done outside. The customer repairs would all be done
where
elsewhere.
You're keeping the thread, the connecting thread to the dealership is through that customer advocate, which we've talked to some dealers that we've worked with. They have them where they're there to help facilitate getting the cars repaired. It's not that they're not going to sit in their lot, but they facilitate as in like, okay, so it's going to go here and we're going to get a check on it. And that they're keeping that kind of conversation going. So you're keeping that communication layer open.
It's really a question of who turns the wrenches, who pays for it. And then back to the thing about, in your example, if I just have 3 lifts, look, if I tie up my lifts doing customer repairs, which I don't, let's not misunderstand me, folks. I'm going to take care of my customers.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm
Oh, they're going
recommending
to
you
get
take
taken care
The
of.
customers are going to be supported.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is not ignoring my customers. This is a matter of who turns the wrenches and how the money moves.
Okay.
Okay. So that's all it really
Okay.
is. I'm still taking care of the customer. In fact, I could probably make the case that my customer gets taken care of faster by me just saying, you pick a shop that's available that you trust, and we'll approve the thing. You know, there's a process where we can quickly approve it, and we're going to write the check, and you'll have your car fixed. And the other thing I like about that is if there's a problem with the car not being repaired right, that's between the customer and the shop. Now I'm just a lender.
That's absolutely, because that's okay.
Yeah. See?
Yes.
So,
and it's different when it's outside of your shop. Then it does become a different balance on who's responsible for paying for this kind of thing.
No, and I'm glad I want you to poke holes, because I know our dealers, I can imagine our V8 members listening to this. And when I have our meetings this month, they're going to want to poke holes in anything they heard me say here, because I'll share this recording with them, because I think it's central to what we do. But let me go a step further. If I choose to tie up my 3 bays with handling custom repairs all the time, I can end up with happy customers. But if I'm not still selling cars, I'm out. I'm just going out of business slowly. I'm just going out of business. It's a question of what pace I'm going out of business, because if I can't continue to produce sales and produce cash flow and profit,
it means you have to buy a high mileage car that's ready for frontline, and that's not easy to find.
Yeah, so you'll see the numbers when we get inside what dealers are spending on average to buy a car. It used to buy a heck of a car. Now it buys a high mile car with a lot of problems, and so they have a lot of recon problems.
Yeah,
I guess we can start to show this, but please help me remember to get back to those things that we touched on, because there are some other scenarios that we need to kind of wrap up. So let's look at scenario number 1. So this is just a PDF of a spreadsheet that I put together. I'll show the actual spreadsheet in just a minute. Okay. So for those not seeing the screen, if you're just listening by audio, this is actual data from our V8 dealer groups, and I chose to just reference the groups that have members of 100 to 500 accounts. Okay. So that's pretty representative. I meet a lot more dealers in that group than dealers with more than 500 accounts. Okay. So I think this is pretty representative of a typical, small market dealer or whatever, or small volume dealer. Average selling price, 14,801.
This is not numbers that we're just pulling out of air because they sound good. This is the average selling price of the dealers that you're pooling.
Correct. This is based on April data. Okay. The average acquired purchase cost, I have that in gray because I calculated that. We don't break that down. We have some data in there, but we don't show it in our summary. But what we do have is the average total recondition cost of $78.14 and an average reconditioning expense. This is both parts and labor. We don't ask them to separate it. In V8, we're simple. We want simple and fast. And so we want, so we've got $1,654 average recon. Again, I don't know how much is parts and labor. So I'm piecing together different things here to arrive at something meaningful for our conversation today. That means an average gross profit comes in at $69.87. Call it $7,000.
And for those of you who are not buy here, pay here dealers, or those of you that are new to buy here, pay here, that sounds like an awful lot, but there are averages of people that you don't collect the entire thing because there's, you're shipping you another car or any number of things.
The dealer's taking a tremendous amount of risk.
They do take a lot of risk.
Financing a customer who hasn't shown a lot of financial responsibility in the past. They're putting actual cash at risk, and so they need to make a substantial profit for that risk. Okay, it's reward to risk is what I talk about. The average payment came in at $521. This is on cars that were sold in that 6-month period. So average payment across all customers and all dealers was $521. So now what I did is I had to back into how much the recon that we show above of $1,654 is labor. And I had to back it way down. I think it's much higher than this, but let me explain before we get there.
If that was all labor or if that's just labor
so let me kind of go through all the stuff. Because I didn't have a choice here. I don't think I can to make it relevant based on all the information we have. I did a poll a while back and I asked dealers, and we went into the retail group and kind of polled dealers, and what was coming back was an average of about 6 hours of shop time per car
Okay.
solar per
That
car
sounds
per unit.
That sounds reasonable.
It sounds high to me, but that's
it's
2026 versus when I was a dealer.
Well, especially if you're keeping your pricing the same
Right.
as it was before COVID. Yeah. That doesn't that because the car costs have gone up, but people can't afford a
and
more
because
expensive
costs of
payment.
car have come up, this dealer's spending an average of $6,160 to buy a car at the sale. And that sounds like quite a bit of used car, but I'm just telling you, in today's prices, you're buying cars with miles and problems and maybe some light body damage, and you're getting some cars with that need some real help.
A lot of times they're not the prettiest cars that are coming through the auctions.
So obviously the tech, because we don't differentiate between body, mechanic turning wrenches or a body shop, spraying paint. We're just labor, parts. That's all we're really looking at, is dump it all in one bucket. But if we have that, and we say, and I back this down to say, okay, well, I had to back it down to how much would be if I use an internal labor rate of $50. It varies. Okay. It's all over the place with our dealers. But but if you just used $50 for an internal labor rate, then I had to get that down to about $300 in order to say that was equivalent to about 6 hours. I needed to have that be about $300 of total labor.
Okay.
That
all right.
sense?
So that would make then your Recon $1,300 of the parts.
That's right. So that's what I came up with.
All right.
So parts is the other is the rest. So again, I have 6 labor hours. You can see their arrows pointing to this next. I'm going to show you the next slide. But I used $120 for an external labor rate. I don't know what it is, but it's it varies. But we know what we pay when we go to a mechanic locally or whatever. So it's just this can be your Firestone. It could be your Mr. Muffler. It can be Joe's Shady Garage. Shade Tree Garage.
Shade Tree. Not Shady Garage. Yeah. Don't send your car to Shady Garage.
Well, if he does good work, it's if he turns out the cars. So here's the thing. When I go to this next slide, what you're going to see, and we may have to reposition our screen here a little bit, Michelle, because this is smaller because it's just a larger version of the same screen. But I just ran a scenario that said, okay, if I could sell 3 more cars a month by sending vehicles to an outside shop.
Keep going, because it's just like I can feel puckering at this.
Dealers don't want to pay $120. They feel like they can't pay $120 an hour. I get it.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to lose patience with it, frankly. This is why I'm saying we got to hit this thing between the eyes. It's like this math is just can't really hide from this math.
And math doesn't lie.
It doesn't. So now back to, if I do 3 extra sales a month, doesn't matter what our volume is. Like I just picked 3 units. I mean, you could go back in and say 10% increase, 5% increase in sales at 3 units. That is, let me get this expanded where I can see it better myself. That came to almost $21,000. Not surprising. We're at $7,000 a unit. We now have $21,000 of additional gross profit in that month because we sold 3 extra cars. The additional payments at the $521 times 3 more customers paying next month means we're going to bring in another $1,562 next month in payments that we wouldn't have had we not sold those 3 cars.
So, and here's the big one that you're coming to the next number. And so how much additional labor costs if you sent it out? How much?
This is not even additional. This is total labor costs. I spent, so see the arrows, 3 additional units times 6 hours per unit times $120 per hour at the external shop means I shelled out another $2,160.
More than you would have if it had been in-house?
No, total.
Total. Okay, so, and if it had been in-house?
You can cut that roughly in half.
Okay, so it's about 1 month's worth of payments for those 3 units that
So you can think about profit, you can think about cash flow, but you can simply say, if dealers are saying my Recon, my shop is my bottleneck. Okay. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, why wouldn't we pay more externally And I don't, maybe the shop is 45 minutes away. You
Yeah.
can sit down and add all these costs to what it takes extra to go pay $120 an hour at the town over, because they can turn out 2 more cars a month. All right. And so let's keep it simple here. Let's go back now to the story about how we solve that. And I guess let me finish this math.
I do have a quick question.
Sure.
Slava asked, include details in the vehicle. So I'm not sure exactly what it is that you mean by that, Slava, but it's, we do know that this is something they're buying at the auction for about 61.
Yeah,
$6,100.
Separate analysis. So we just lost the light. So it may just
now we're going mood lighting. It's okay. No.
Anyway,
okay.
we now know that profit return. If I'm gonna spend an extra $2,000 in labor, because these are cars that are fixed elsewhere because my shop couldn't get to them.
Yep.
Okay. So I spent an extra $2,000 externally in labor to get these 3 cars ready. And now I brought in another $21,000 of gross profit. So that profit ROI is 970%. I'm getting 9 times more, almost 10 times more on my money in gross profit, if we want to measure it that way. If we want to measure it in cash instead, you shelled out more cash than you brought in. I didn't even look at down payments and the sales on this. That's a different thing. But it takes about 1.4 months in car payments to recover the extra labor that I put in.
And this is also saying you don't have a floor plan.
Yeah,
because if you have a floor plan, every car that's sitting is costing you even more money.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of people, if they're doing it in house and they've got a floor plan that sucks, then it's sixes.
Even if they don't have a floor plan, it's costing them money. It's just a question. It's their money versus the floor plan company's money. Right. It's like it's their money. That's, the floor plan, they have expenses.
Well, it's just a different line item. That's it. That's it. You're still paying it.
I can promise you, when I went to that dealership and there were 14 cars sitting, it was costing somebody money for those cars to sit there. Right. And so that's why I'm saying it's we can stop sharing that and take that off the screen. But I think that's the relevant part that I wanted to have a chance to share. And I've got in spreadsheet, we can go into the actual spreadsheet and change those numbers and change the math. But I think people have enough math, they have enough representation out here to see how they would do that math for themselves. But let me go back to the scenarios where let me tackle the one about the guy who I said, let's just write checks for the customer work outside. Okay. So suddenly, because of that, the techs were happier. The morale thing was solved because
hey, and how many of you dealers out there recognize that having a morale, taking care of morale in your own shop, that helps keep techs around, for one thing.
So why it's frustrating for a tech to be in the middle of a car and maybe they've got it up on the lift and they're waiting for whatever to be delivered, and now they're being pulled off of that because they're being asked because there's a customer with a problem, and obviously we're trying to make our customers happy, so we have to move a car off a lift that's incapacitated, and we have to make the lift available. So techs can get frustrated and we lose techs, right? So this can be among the things that can be solved. But I can tell you, back to that one dealer, what that one dealer told me is that my techs were thrilled when I told them that we were shifting that policy and we're going to start doing customer work outside. Why? Because that meant they could focus on this. That meant they didn't have to be involved in the heat cases or whatever, the unhappy customers and the pressurized
and
stuff.
The calls, because that is one thing. All the dealerships that we've gone and we've talked to people where they have their own lifts.
Right.
It's like dealing with customers' calls too.
Absolutely.
It's like, where are we at? What's happening? You don't have that if they're just doing recon.
If they're just doing recon, and I'm selling more cars.
That.
My cars are ready. My front line gets full. I'm able to sell more cars. Now, you can end up like the Lynn Hickey Dodge, where you sell so many cars you can't service them. So that's a story for another day. We talked about some of that.
We did. We had some fun on the drive.
For sure. So there's a whole story we've touched on before about Oklahoma City dealer Lynn Hickey Dodge. You can look up. There's a little history out there. But bottom line is you sell so many that you can't really support them, and we're not advocating that. We want to support these customers. So as I said, everything that we're talking about here does not preclude providing excellent support to your customers.
Yeah.
I'm simply just saying that if we're so locked in on this idea that we have to do the work in our shop because our labor rate is less and we want to save that money, we need to also allow for the fact that what's costing us.
Well, it's like I'm going to murder this, I'm sure, but it's like you're tripping over dollars to save pennies.
I thought of that phrase too. Yeah.
It's like, so you're stepping over something that is more
really
cost effective.
That's really
to save
what's happening.
pennies.
So I think, so let me go back to the thing about, let's talk about that one dealership that had 14 cars stacked up. And that dealer,
at the outside shop. Okay, that's a whole nother can of worms. But yes.
So let me just tell you what happened. I went in there as a general manager with the authority to do this kind of stuff, and I told the guy, that tech, he was a business owner and had a full shop there, and I said, I need to get the keys to XYZ. I gave him a list of about 8 cars. I need to get the keys to about 8 cars. I'm taking them elsewhere. He was not happy. My understanding was I'm getting all the work. I said that understanding has been nullified. We're not doing that anymore. And so I was able to pull those cars out, take them elsewhere. And then we implemented with him what I had done, in other places, which was,
I love this
we're
policy.
it's
a great policy. Everyone listen and take notes.
Super clean. So it's basically what we did is I just said, you're going to get 2 cars at a time. And when those cars are ready, you can have 2 more. And he didn't love it. But you know what?
Why? Why didn't he love it?
Well, you can answer. You can guess what his answer
because
would be.
It's like, if you can get 2 cars done in 4 days, you get 2 more cars.
So there's another part. So if I can do this, let's just pick any shade tree mechanic that's 45 minutes away.
I love. There's a shade tree back in Utah that I just loved them. So the name is like, that means something to me. So yes.
So it's like the idea here is that you tell the shop, and again, I think it's best to pick an example where somebody clear across town. There's somebody you're not using now. You go sit in there and you talk to them and say, hey, I want to start bringing you 2 cars. I'm Joe's Used Cars. I want to start bringing to you 2 cars at a time. And we will have done an assessment. And so when we bring them to you, we're just really asking you to either replace the water pump, or we're just hiring you to do a job, and we'll accept the responsibility. If that doesn't fix the problem, we're not going to be giving you a hard time. They need to know that, and they need to come trust that. Because if I'm just hiring them, because what I'm really still doing is I'm still assessing the car at my shop. I need somebody on my team who can give me a good, thorough assessment
that can say, here's your hit list. That we've done.
Like, again, I think we're going to run long here this morning, but I think some of this stuff is important to get recorded, because I think this is the stuff that in my own work, we definitely solve some of this stuff that I'm hearing dealers talk about. And I think I'm going to tell them exactly how to solve it. Okay. So you go in there and you just tell them, look, I'm going to bring you 2 cars. I'm going to hire you to do this job. And I can either supply the parts or we'll use your parts. Some of them want to mark up their parts, whatever. You just work with them. But it's like, my approach would be this. And again, I'm picking a shop that's 45 minutes away. And so I'm going to go over there and I'm going to bring them 2 cars and I'm going to say, we want to hire you to do this job. Let's talk about how you want to do parts. You use your parts, whatever, or we charge them on my account and get them delivered to you, whatever. We're going to work that out. But then when you get them done, I'm going to come pick them up. I'm going to bring you a check, and I'm going to bring you 2 more cars. Okay. And I can promise you that shop over there, especially the ones that are outside of town, they're a little bit slow. There are shops out there that are hungry for this work. Everybody talks about shops are busy, but not everybody's this busy. And if this guy is slow and they can only turn out 2 cars a month, that's 2 cars I wasn't getting anywhere else. Oh, they were just going to sit on my asphalt. Anyway. And so they weren't going to get done.
And we deal with dealers that have very small amount of asphalt, and so this is a solution for that as well. Is like,
you don't need a ton of asphalt when you're turning.
No,
you do not need a ton of asphalt. So what you're doing is you're sending these cars to another shop. Now, initially, and I can tell you, we had one that I worked with a dealership group that one that I overhauled, and we just completely reworked that thing, rebranded it all, new location, new people, and just kind of completely overhauled that thing. And one of the things that we settled into was we got the best shop in town. Everybody said they're the best. And they started making a priority of our work. Why? Because our checks were good. They knew that if they turned their invoices in by 5 o'clock on a Monday, that they got paid by noon on Tuesday. Every time. We made sure they had their check every time on Tuesday by noon. And they got to liking that. They got
that
to liking
that. That takes, it's like discipline.
Yeah.
As a dealer, are you discipline is a big deal, but are you disciplined to do that? Because it will pay dividends.
And what you can do is the same thing I did with that shop. When I went in there, I didn't say, hey, I got a lot of volume over here. I want a better labor rate. Nope. I went in there and I said, I'm going to bring you 2 cars. And when you finish them, I'm going to bring you 2 more. And I paid their rate. And I continued to pay their rate, and I continued to write them a check every Tuesday morning, and they were thrilled. And then one day I went in there and sat down with them after we had started doing a pretty steady volume, and then we talked about a labor rate.
See, okay, now that's something that you've encouraged dealers that are new to this, is like, don't negotiate the labor rate. Give them at the beginning, give them what their labor rate is. And as they see, and they can start to trust, because we are in the trust business. This is the white hat way. It's like, you can trust this is going to be happening. That's when and I love that, because it's like, okay, then they can start to run their numbers and go, this makes a lot of sense.
And after you've done it for 2 or 3 months, yes, I've been paying a higher labor rate, but suddenly I'm getting a lot more cars reconditioned. I'm selling a lot more cars, and I can go sit down with Mike. I'm gonna call Mike and I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna bring your check over on Tuesday at lunch. Can I bring sandwiches for you and your whole team? And would I be able to sit with you for 30 minutes and talk about this?
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
And I sit down with them and I say, okay, so can we talk about this labor rate? You can now see we're going to do a lot of volume. You can see that our checks are going to be good every Tuesday morning without having to say all that stuff out loud. He knows that. And so we're able to just negotiate a rate. And maybe we renegotiate every 6 months or whatever. But I'm saying, even you just saw, even if I have to pay the $120 an hour, I'm still ahead. I'm still doing sales that I wasn't doing before.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so I'm still using my shop, and I'm still running my shop at full capacity. Right. And I'm using my shop to do assessments, and I'm letting my shop cherry pick the jobs. That makes the morale in my shop even better when they can say, okay, I'm going to work on these 4, in the next 2 days, and I'm going to pick the jobs, and I'm going to send these jobs that I don't like out to somebody else. They're thrilled. Your own shop is thrilled. So I think this is the part that we've touched on this here and there, but it's like, we just, this is a problem that's solvable. Now, in your market, you may have to drive a little bit, and you may have to have a driver that goes, you may have 2 drivers that go
drop off, pick up,
Let me tell you what else will happen. These techs and these mechanic shops, they would start to get to the place where they were hungry enough. They'd say, hey, we got 2 people. We can drive them over to you.
They're
if you
done.
Have 2 more
can
ready.
we
drive them over? So they would drive them over.
You can even negotiate that with them after, after doing it for a little bit. There are a couple of pitfalls. Okay. Well, one, you'd mentioned pay the rate. Don't negotiate at the beginning, because it is about building trust. Because there are like the one that was getting all of them. It's like, I'll give you this killer rate if I get all of them. Well, you could get that killer rate somewhere else after having that kind of track record. The other thing that we've seen, it doesn't happen all the time, but especially if you've got a GM or someone that's helping out a friend by giving them the business.
Oh yeah.
You want to be like, we talk about theft. We talk about a lot of that. Just be really careful that it's not an under the table deal. Yeah. Because that does happen. Yeah. And but I'm not saying that happens with everyone, but just be careful of that kind of thing, because that's just a pitfall in taking it outside of the dealership. But the benefits of doing that far outweigh the risks or the cost. Yeah.
And you described, a lot of it is solved if I'm doing my own assessment. You become vulnerable when you send a car out that needs 3 hours of labor, and the shop over there says, well, it actually needs this, and that's 5 hours of labor or whatever. Or they're just charging 5 hours worth of work when it really just needed 3. So the key, really, from my mind, a way to limit what you're talking about, is to make sure we have a good, thorough assessment on the front end. And look, I've been there, and I've told shops, and when I take it in the past, I've got a car that it's not running. Like it's got an engine problem. I can't drive it. Well, until I get it running, and get it out on the road, I may not know that it's got a front wheel bearing that also needs to be replaced, or a CV axle or something. I'm not going to know that until I can actually drive. I get that. That's my risk. I'm taking that chance when I step into it. This is why I said one of the words I used early was an accurate and thorough assessment. Because there's another one that's uncomfortable, and it's almost a whole separate subject, Michelle. We never have to recon the car. Dealers
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And that has been like, it's been a curious thing to me where I will see that it's like they want it to be off the line perfect. And it's a used car. With a lot of miles. And
for sure,
Jack Carter, one of the things that I really enjoy, I love how he does a walk around a car a lot of times. Good. And he will point out every scratch, every dent.
Selling it when he's putting
he's putting it out on his front line. He will talk about this. It's got this. It's got this, got this, but it runs well and it blows cold. That's okay, good. And so it's like, if it, you can leave a dent in the side panel, you can leave a crack in a bumper if you need to, you can leave something that is not exactly perfect on the interior. I've watched dealers like repair leather, and it's because they want it off of the
again, a different subject for a different day. The part that I was referring to when I say you never have to recondition it, I'm saying you never need to write the first check to spend to even detail the car. You probably would be beneficial to recondition or to detail the car and send it back to the auction. But what I'm really saying is, if you get a thorough assessment on a car and you say, this car, and be disciplined about it. You can say, I have a maximum reconditioning policy of X. It may be labor hours, it may be $2,000, whatever it is. And if you do the checklist, a thorough checklist on this car, and it comes back in excess of that amount, you can choose not to start.
Yeah, you can send it back to the
wholesale
auction.
And you may lose $500, $800 in wholesaling that car, and you'll be money ahead. Take that cash and buy something.
That's another one of those looking out further than your end of month or whatever.
And listen, it's painful. I've been there, especially when you're smaller shop doing small volume. It's painful. You made a mistake. And so own it. Don't make a second mistake, because I made a mistake. I bought a car. I paid too much for a car. I overlooked some problems. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't make a second mistake by now throwing a bunch of money into that car. And now you look up and you have a lot of money in it. You've got 3 weeks in, 5 weeks in, this car's still not on the lot. It's like, these are hard things to measure, but it's a real direct cost to your business. It's stunting your sales, and you see what you're missing in terms of gross profit by not addressing those things. I think it's just important for dealers to get comfortable with this idea that, get a thorough assessment, spread the work around, go find the shops. Yeah, it's not easy. Yes, you're going to spend more to get them to do the work, but you're going to have more cars available for sale, and you're going to sell more.
Yeah.
And so this is the part that we just got to kind of let go of some thinking that has us trapped in this idea that we have to run every car through our own shop. And in reality, you don't.
Yeah. Well, and we're kind of wrapping up the topic today, but if you need help, please feel free to call or text 903-816-0216 or reach out to Jim at jim@whitehatway.com.
Sure.
That's I can't tell you how many times Jim will just answer a question too.
Oh, sure.
But just
feel
free.
A bunch today.
We did, right? Yeah. Or send us, hey, that's another idea. Send or text a topic, something that you would like to see us talk about, or
my phone number's still right there on the screen.
903-816-0216. Right?
Well,
you can if you do a comment on the streams, but
okay.
That's all okay.
I'm always open to dissenting viewpoints. So
All right. Great conversation. Thank you so much. It was fun for me too.
Good.
So it's Friday, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. I know a lot of you guys are going to be on the lot, and it's we know that you make a choice to listen, and we really, really appreciate your time and consideration. So I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your day, and we will see you next week.
Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks so much. Bye.